Okay, you guys, it's time to jump into look number one. I am sucking on a cough drop here because this is probably when I was the sickest recording this video. That's why I'm doing a voiceover. So I'm going to be doing more of a warmer toned look today. So I'm going to be taking my Too Faced crease brush and I'm going to be dipping into the shade Royal Jewels as my transition. So I'm going to use that first. And I'm going to start buffing that into my crease. And it's just this really pretty, like mid-toned, like warm peachy shade. It's not too peachy. It really reminds me of Makeup Geek's Peaches and Cream, and I really like using it as a transition shade. So I'm just going to be working that into my crease first, and then we will jump into the second color. I really have been liking laying this color down first for most of the looks that I do for this palette, or when I do like more neutral looks. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into the shade You Are a Gem, and this one is much more peachy toned than the Royal Jewels shade, and I'm just going to be buffing this shade into my crease as well. I'm just going to tap off the excess and then I'm going to apply it to my crease. Again, this one's much more of like an orangey toned shade, and as you can see, I'm building up the color to be a little bit more warmer toned. And then I'm just going to buff it in on the other side as well. Okay, and then I'm going to jump into the shade Carnelian, which is this really pretty, like rusty orangey color, which you guys know I love these kind of colors for the fall time. Even, I don't know why my strap for my shirt was sticking out, but I'm going to be jumping into that shade. And there's actually a color in the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette that has the same exact name, and they're literally like almost the same color. I was like, I've seen that shade Carnelian in another palette before, and then I realized a couple days back that this shade is also in the Natasha Denona palette as well. So I'm using this shade to buff in my crease as my defining shade to make it a little bit more of a like deeper warm orangey look. And this is actually the first time I'm using this shade, and I ended up freaking loving it. The mattes just work really beautifully, especially like the lighter tone mattes in this palette. I really liked how all of these mattes work together. They just came out really, really pretty. So I'm just keeping on blending that really quick, and then we'll jump into the next shade. Okay, so then for my outer corners, I'm going to be using the shade Jasper, and it's this really pretty like orangey brownish shade, and you guys know again I love these types of shades, especially for the outer corners. I also use this shade as like a crease shade when I do more neutral looks, but I really wanted to use this as the outer corner shade. I would have used Garnet to make it even more of like a reddish toned look, but since I was only going over my boyfriend's house, I didn't have to like do the most, so that's why I was just like, I'll just stick with this warm toned brown on the outer corners. So I'm buffing that and blending it in, and then we're just going to apply some NYX glitter glue on the lid so we can apply my lid shades. I'm just going to do that off camera. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the lid shade, which is the shade Sandstone, and it's this really beautiful like warm toned peachy shimmery shade. And I'm going to use that all over my lid. And it's really pretty. It's like this orangey gold. And you can tell, obviously, that I already love it. This is the first time I was using it all over my lid. I think my mom's home, so sorry for all the barking. So I'm just going to apply it to this eye first, and then we're just going to buff it on the other side as well. I always use my finger to apply my lid shade. I just always find that I get the best color payoff if I use my finger, so I really haven't changed it in a while, and also because I'm super hella lazy to use a brush, but also again, I feel like nothing works better than your actual finger when it comes to applying a shimmer shade. So I'm just going to keep on buffing that all over the lid. I felt like I had to build up the color a little bit for this one to get like the full pigmentation that I wanted. I think I was still building it up. Wow, I'm taking a while. Sorry about that. So So yeah, just keep on building up the color until I get the desired pigmentation that I want. And then I think I took a little bit of the crease shades, and unless I don't even know what I did again. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into a lid topper just because I felt like putting a little bit more sparkle on. So I'm taking the shade Diamond, which is the Super Shock shadow in the palette, and I'm going to just apply that a tiny bit over that sandstone shade, just for a slight hint of a little bit more glitter. And I really like how it transformed the lid shade, because she does use this color as a lid topper a lot, and I wanted to use it in that way as well. And this was actually the first shade that I used in the palette when I first got it, but I wanted to like use it again, because that was only the second time I was using it. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the brow bone highlight. I'm going to take the shade My Precious. It's pretty much the shade I'm going to use on my brow bone for every look, because it's pretty much the only brow bone highlight in the palette. So I'm just going to buff that on my brow bone. This is really pretty, like matte, creamy white shade. And I actually really do appreciate that this shade is in the palette, so that I don't have to go and grab like a single shadow. I can just grab everything that I absolutely need out of this palette, which I really do love. Because sometimes you're just too lazy to grab another shade, but also just because. And then I'm just going to buff more of the shade Carnelian in the crease to get rid of a little bit of the transfer from the glitter shade. And then I'm also going to take a little bit more Jasper just to blend that on the outer corners as well. And that's pretty much it for the eyes for now, and then we're going to jump into the face makeup once I'm done blending this color a little bit more. And then I'm just going to take a little bit more of the lid shade just so we don't lose that pigmentation. And then we're going to jump into the face. Okay, so for the face, I used my Wet n Wild concealer, the Photo Focus concealer, and I believe the shade Ivory. I don't think there's a lighter shade than that. Then I used the Colourpop No Filter Setting Powder in Translucent to set my under eyes. And then I used the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Pressed Powder in Warm Light to set the rest of my face. And now we're going to jump back into the Colourpop So Jaded palette, and we're going to do the lower lash line and the inner corners. I don't know what I'm doing right now. So for the, I think I'm doing my inner corners first. I'm going to take the shade Moonstone, and I'm going to apply that, and I'm going to take a little bit of Pearl, I guess. I'm going to take both of those, and I'm going to apply them to my inner corners. I think I just went with Moonstone, right? I guess. Okay, so I'm going in with Moonstone. And it's this really pretty, you know, typical beautiful color for the lid and for the inner corners. It's stunning. So I pretty much take my time applying that. So I really wanted to build it up and make sure it was super shiny on the inner corners. So that's what I'm using. Sorry, I'm just going to keep on sipping some water. And then I'm just going to build up the color some more. Sometimes I never feel like it's shiny enough. Like I need my inner corners to be like really shiny. And I just build it up like crazy, so I guess that's what I'm doing right now. And then I think I also dipped into the shade Pearl as well, because I wanted it to be even shinier, and I used that to build up the colors on my inner corners even more. So, and I just started dying, coughing again. I was like, oh shit. And then I applied it to the other eye. Sometimes that's why I don't like doing voiceovers, because like I spend so much time not talking, because like how long can I talk about applying something to my inner corners? So anyway, now I'm going to jump into the lower lash line. I'm just going to take the shade You're a Gem, and I'm just going to take a little bit, I guess that's what I was saying, just to smudge a little bit on the lower lash line, just to give the lower lash line a little bit of definition. So that's what I'm doing. Again, it's a really pretty peachy shade, and I just fell in love with it. I think it just got a little bit, I got a little bit too much underneath my eye, so I guess that's why I made that face. I don't know. These videos are so long to edit. Like, you have to do the voiceover, then you have to do the music, then you have to speed up the film, then you have to cut out stuff. Like, it's a lot of work, so. And then I started coughing again. Sorry about that. I'm pretty much almost 100% today. I'm feeling much better than the first day that I recorded a look in this video. So yeah, I just kept on coughing. And sorry about my bra strap showing. I guess I just didn't decide to fix it. And then I'm just going to clean up the under eyes from the shimmer from the inner corners with my sponge. And that is it for the eyes. Then I did apply some nude liner on my waterline off camera, and then I'm just going to use the Milani Dolce bronzer to bronze up my skin. I used the MAC liner in the shade Risque to apply to my waterline. So after I'm done bronzing up my skin, I'm going to jump into blush, and I'm going to use the nude blush in the shade Lunar Has It from the Colourpop and Kathleen Light's Zodiac collection. I thought it was only fitting to use at least one of her blushes in this video because I'm obviously using her palette with Colourpop as well. So I went ahead and used that. And then for the highlight, I'm going in with the Colourpop Light Sticks in the shade Bullseye, I believe. Because I believe the blush that I have is called Under Pressure. This is called Bullseye, and it's a really beautiful gold. I've actually really have been enjoying this highlighter so much. It's so pretty. So I first swiped it on, and then I buffed it in with my finger. And then I decided to use my brush and apply even more. But you can also just swipe it on just like I did. You don't have to use a brush until after, because I feel like it really builds up the pigment really nicely and it just looks so pretty. And then I just went ahead and applied it to the rest of the places that I usually highlight: my nose, my cupid's bow, and above my brow bone. And then we're going to jump into another blush. I decided to just take a little bit of the shade Castaway from the Alamar Cosmetics palette, just because I wanted a little bit more peachiness on my cheeks. So I just applied that over the Lunar Has It blush. And then for the lips, I'm going to go in with MAC's matte lipstick in the shade Kinda Sexy. I'm not going to use a lip liner, and I had to drink because I was like dying. Because I usually don't typically use a lip liner when I do really subtle looks, especially when I'm just going over his house, because I always end up wiping it off anyway after we eat. So I used that to use as my lipstick. It's still one of my favorite nudes ever. I hadn't used it in quite a while, so I wanted to use it today. And then once I'm done applying that, I'm going to apply a gloss over it, and I'm going to use the Alamar Cosmetics Nude Gloss in the shade Chula. And it's just really pretty over like all my peachy tone lipsticks. I really do love it. And as you can see, it gives like a beautiful peachy glossiness to the lips. And that is it for this look. Okay, you guys, so here's look number 1. Here are the eyes, the cheeks, and the lips. So this is the third look that I've done with this palette, and again, I love it. I'm obsessed with this palette. I can't wait to do more looks. So I'm definitely going to throw a colorful look in this video as well. Tomorrow will probably be a pretty neutral look as well. So yeah, that's it. So I'll see you guys tomorrow for look number 2. Okay guys, so now let's jump into look number 2. It is the next day, so we're going to jump into the palette again. And today we're going to concentrate on more of the like bluer tones and stuff, because I really wanted to do like a colorful look. So I'm going to like start with a pretty easy transition shade and a light shade, because I was kind of inspired by the look that Kathleen did in her 3 looks 1 palette video as well. So I'm going to take the shade Rose Quartz, and I'm going to buff that all in my crease as my transition shade and as our like base shade, so we can work with a lot more colorful shades after we lay this shade down in the crease. So I'm just going to use that. I'm going to buff it back and forth, and I'm now going to do the other eye. So this look is going to be really colorful, and I can't wait. I really loved the end result, and this is probably my favorite look I did so far with the palette. But I pretty much love every look that I've done. Okay, so after we get that down, now we're going to jump into more of the colorful shades. So now I'm going to take the matte turquoise shade, and it's called turquoise, and I'm going to take that on my defining brush, and I'm going to use that just to define my and just add a little bit of dimension in the crease. And I'm going to slowly build up the color because I didn't want it to be too pigmented when I first built it up. And then I kind of learned this from Kathleen in her video, that you should just take the color gradually and start blending it in rather than just taking a lot of it, because then it can look kind of muddy and not as blue. So now I'm going to do that on this other side as well, just gently build up the color rather than just taking like a bunch of it on my brush and start working that in, because it is a very pigmented shade. I'm going to dip into more of it and keep on working it back and forth on the other eye as well. When she did her look, she did use this color like all over her crease, but I didn't want to take the color all in my crease because the tank top that I was wearing doesn't really have too much turquoise in it, so I wanted to stick with more of the colors that were in my actual shirt. So I just wanted a little bit of blue, not too much, and that was like the only other matte shade that I wanted to use besides the next shade, because I was like kind of thinking about it. Like wasn't sure what else I wanted to use. So I was like, let me just clean off my brush first, and then I came back and I put my I wanted to put my NYX glitter glue on my lids first on camera. I mean off camera, and then I jumped into the other shades that I was going to use. So now I'm going to take the beautiful shimmery shade called Amethyst. This is really beautiful purple. Obviously, she wanted a color that represented amethyst, so she went with like this really beautiful like purple shade. So I'm going to use that shade. I'm going to use it on the inner parts of my lid because I didn't want it all over my lid. I wanted to use as many colors as I could on my lid so I could test out more of the colorful shades. So I used this amethyst shade on the inner parts and kind of dragged it into like the middle of my lid. And I wanted to really make sure that it was on the inner part, like the inner corners of my eye. And then I did the same on the other eye. So I'm just going to keep on working that color back and forth on that part of my eye. And then I'm going to keep on building up the color, and I'm going to use my pinky as well so I can get it more so on the inner part. So I'm just going to keep on building it up. It's such a pretty, vibrant purple shade. I was like really impressed with how pigmented it was, because purples are really hard to do. Okay, and then I'm just going to clean off my fingers, and I'm not sure what I dipped into next. I think I went in with another purple. Yeah, so I was going to go in with the color Alexandrite. I'm going to take that and just not even use too much of it. I just wanted it on the center of my lid. So I'm just going to like push it into the amethyst shade so we have like it kind of blending into the amethyst shade rather than just it sitting in the middle of my lid, because I wanted it to kind of have a little bit of a gradient effect from like amethyst to Alexandrite and then to like the outer corner shade that I'm going to use. So this was like a really pretty darker purple duochrome shade, and I really like it as well. It again really worked with the colors that were in my shirt, and it kind of really matched really pretty. It kind of like reminded me of like the sky that was in my shirt, so I really like that color as well. And then I'm going to take my outer corner shade. I'm just cleaning off my fingers again, and I'm going to dip into the shade Sapphire, and I'm going to take that all over my outer corners because that's the only other matte shade that would work with this look because it's another blue tone. So I'm going to take that with my brush and I'm going to work that on my outer corners. I'm going to not take too much of it. I want to build up the color like she did for her video, and I've learned with like the Kat Von D Metal Matte palette, like with those colorful shades, that you are better off just building up the color first, because sometimes they can oxidize or just end up being like a color that you don't want, like they end up muddying together. So the sapphire shade really built up really nicely to be like this really pretty like navy blue shade. And I really ended up liking the shade on my outer corners as well. It just looked really pretty. So I'm just going to keep on buffing that on the outer corners. You can take some water. I just wanted to make sure it was well blended. And I'm just going to clean off my brush. And then I'm going to take more of that shade, and again, oh actually, what am I doing now? I'm actually taking the shade turquoise, because I didn't want to lose that pigment in the crease, and I'm just going to buff that in my crease again. And look how vibrant that is now. I'm like, ooh, the blue's like really showing now. So I really liked that. And I just wanted to make sure they blended together with that the turquoise blended into sapphire. I'm not sure what I'm doing now. So now I'm going to take sapphire again and buff that on the outer corners, just again so we don't lose that pigment as well. And then I think I'm just going to take each of the shades again and make sure that they're really pigmented. So I think I took amethyst again and put that on my lid shade and put that on my lid. And then I did the same with alexandrite, just again to make sure that we don't lose the colors. So it just takes a lot of building up of the colors. Okay, so now I'm just going to clean off my hands again. And I'm really liking how the look is turning out so far. So now I'm going to take more of the NYX glitter glue, and I'm going to use that on my center of my lid, on the center of the lid, because I wanted to add one of the pressed glitters to the look. So I'm just going to take a little bit of it and start putting it like in between alexandrite and amethyst, because that's where I wanted to fit that color. So I'm just going to put that on the other eye as well. I'm just going to like lightly tap it on, just so the pressed glitter has something to stick to, because sometimes if you use pressed glitters over just an eyeshadow, it doesn't really stick that well. So now I'm going to take the pressed glitter shade in the shade Opal, and I'm going to put that in between alexandrite and amethyst, and I was loving how this looked. It just looks so pretty, and I was like, oh my god, it looks so cool. Again, with pressed glitters, use caution on whether or not you want to use them on your eyes. Just be very careful. I never usually have problems with pressed glitters. Just make sure you use a sticky base like a glitter glue, because then it'll be a lot less likely to get in your eyes. But again, just use caution. So I'm going to just going to work that on the other eye as well, in between alexandrite and amethyst. And it was such a beautiful, like, multi-dimensional shade. I was just absolutely loving it. I'm just going to make sure that I build it up and make sure they both look the same. I'm going to keep on building that up. I think I used a little bit more of alexandrite so I didn't lose that shade, just so I can build that up again in between sapphire and opal. And now I like really love the end result, and I'm just gonna make sure everything looks the way I want it to. And I was like, oh my god, I love it. So, and now I'm going to take my brow bone highlight, and I'm going to use the shade My Precious, and I'm going to use my crown brush to put that on my brow bone. And that's pretty much it for the eye look right now, and then we're going to jump into the face. So now I'm just going to apply that to my brow bone. And it's a really beautiful, again, matte brow bone highlight, and I really love this shade for all the looks that I did. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the face makeup. Actually, I already did my face makeup off camera. I forgot. I kept on doing that with my looks. So I just used my e.l.f. primer with my NYX primer spray. I used the primer spray first and then put the e.l.f. primer on top. Then I used my L'Oreal True Match foundation, and then I used my Colourpop No Filter concealer under my eyes, and then I just used my Thrive Cosmetics powder to set my under eyes, and then I used the NYX HD powder to set my face in translucent. So now we're going to work on the lower lash line. For some reason I was getting powder all over my desk because my NYX HD powder, the top is broken, so the powder gets everywhere on my desk. So I was just cleaning that up, excuse me. So now I'm going to do my lower lash line and my inner corners. So now I'm going to take the shade Aquamarine, and I'm going to put that on my inner corners, and I was dying to use this shade on the inner corners because I thought it would be a really beautiful shade to use for this look. And it's a really beautiful aquamarine shimmery shade, so I applied that all to my inner corners. So the L'Oreal True Match shade I use, I'll probably list that in the description box below. I can't remember what shade it was. And I think for the Colourpop concealer, I used the shade Fair 8 or Fair 2. Again, I'll list it below, or I'll just double check before I actually post this video. But I'm just still recording the voiceover right now. Okay, so for the L'Oreal True Matte shade, I use the shade Porcelain W1, and that's Warm 1. So that's the shade that I use. I'm trying to use it up, so I've been using it quite a bit for full coverage foundation. When I have full coverage foundation days when I go out, I like using a full coverage foundation. How many times can I say full coverage? Okay, so after I put that on my inner corners, I wanted to use the shade Fluorite on my lower lash line. I wasn't sure if it was going to be pigmented enough to put on the lower lash line, but I ended up really loving how it looked. But then I ended up also adding another color after this, but I hadn't used the shade Fluorite yet, so I wanted to use it on the lower lash line. I just wanted to clean off my brush again. So now I'm just going to buff that on the lower lash line. And it's a really beautiful, like, purpley shimmery shade. And then I'm just gonna keep on building it up. I think I ended up wetting my brush at some point because I remember when I watched the Fancy Face, and she adds like pops of color to her lower lash line all the time, that she wets the eyeshadow. So I took a little bit of my Flower Beauty spray and wet my brush. Sorry, I just had an itch. And then I'm going to buff that on the lower lash line again, and that did bring out more of the color. And then I'm going to do the same on the other eye as well. I'm like, yeah, that looks better. So I'm just going to take Fluorite again and buff that on the lower lash line. Starting to get hungry. I'm waiting for my boyfriend to text me back. Like, he was all excited to get pizza, and now all of a sudden he stopped answering me like 3 hours ago. So yeah. So now I'm going to buff that on the other eye as well. And I wet the brush again, and I'm putting that on the lower lash line. And I'm going to keep on building up the color. And that's it for that. So now I decided that I wanted to take a little bit more color on the lower lash line. But at first, I think I took my finger, no, I didn't. Okay. So now I'm going to take the shade Ametrine, and I'm going to use that on the lower lash line as well. I felt like that was a little bit darker to use. So now I'm going to take that and buff that on the lower lash line, and that was like more of the color that I wanted on the lower lash line. So I'm glad that I ended up using so many shades, and I really ended up loving the end result. And then I'm just going to apply some liner off camera and some mascara. I think I used my Maybelline Skinny Liner in black, and then I think I just used the Lancome Monster Big mascara. And I was like, oh my god, I love the look. I was just loving the end result. Okay, so now I'm going to do my face makeup, and I'm going to use my Colourpop Private Party bronzer, and I'm going to bronze up my skin with that, just to keep with the Colourpop theme, and also because I just really wanted to use it. I've just been hooked on this bronzer again, so I'm just going to buff that all over my face. And then I'm going to go in with my blush. I'm just making sure my eyes look the way I want them to. So now I'm going to go in with my blush, and I'm going to use the Makeup Geek single blush in the shade Love Letter. And I'm just going to apply that to my cheeks. It's like a really beautiful, like purpley pink shade. And it's really pigmented. I love the Makeup Geek blushes. And now for the highlight, I'm going to use my ABH Moonchild Glow Kit. I'm going to use the shades Blue Ice and, what's the other one? Blue Moon? Yeah, Blue Ice and Blue Moon. I'm going to apply those to my cheekbones, and I forgot how like beautiful this palette is. It's just such beautiful like purpley blue highlight shades. I'm just going to apply it to my nose and my Cupid's bow, and then on my above my brow as well. Then I think I took the shade a little bit of Purple Horseshoe as well, and I added that too. And then for my lips, I'm going to use the Essence liner in the shade Lost in Love, I believe. It's like a purpley shade. And I'm going to line my lips with that. And then for my lip color, I'm going to use the Colourpop Ultra Matte Lip in the shade Lumiere 2, which is also one of Kathleen Light's collaboration lip shades. And I wanted to use it with the palette because obviously the palette is Kathleen Light's palette as well. And I'm just going to apply that to my lips. And it's one of their Ultra Matte lips. It's a really pretty like purpley shade. I'm just going to keep on applying that, and then I'm just going to finish it up off camera. And then for the gloss on top, I'm going to use the Colourpop Ultra Glossy Lip in the shade My Pet, which is from the Disney Villains collection, which is the Maleficent shade. And I just kind of apply it a little bit first, and then I buff it out with my fingers, because the brush applicator kind of makes it a little bit streaky. And that's it for the look number 2. So here are the eyes. Give you a good look because I used a ton of colors, and I'm literally obsessed with this look. And the cheeks and the lips. I really wanted to play with as many colors as I possibly could, using the more colorful shades. And I have to say, I love every single shade that I've used. Honestly, all these shades are really, really nice and blendable and easy to use. And I'm glad that I didn't really struggle with the colorful shades. And there's only really a couple of colorful mattes in this palette. And I think my favorite shade that I used was this purple shade Amethyst. It's just such a gorgeous lid shade. I just want to look at my look up close. Yeah. It's like absolutely beautiful. And then I really wanted to incorporate more of the purple tone, so I used Alexandrite in the middle of it. And again, I love that color as well. It's a really pretty like jewel chrome purpley shade. And then of course I wanted to incorporate one of the glitters, so I used the shade Opal. And it just looks stunning. Sorry. In between both of those colors. And then Aquamarine is such a stunning inner corner shade, and then I wanted to incorporate some of these lighter purpley tones on the lower lash line, so I used Ametrine and Fluorite, and again, they're just stunning. Like, I really do love this look. I think it's mostly Ametrine on the lower lash line because the other shade didn't really show up as much, but I was really dying to use Aquamarine on the inner corners, so... And yeah, I'm obsessed, and I think that the mattes performed really well as well. The turquoise shade and the sapphire shade I didn't really have any complaints about. So yeah, I will see you tomorrow for look number 3. Why can't I speak? Like, my brain is so concentrated on how bad I sound that I can't speak properly. But I will see you guys tomorrow for look number 3. It probably will be a little bit more of a team look, but I definitely wanted to do a colorful look with this palette as soon as I could. And I'm literally loving how it turned out. So yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay, you guys, so now it is the next day and it's time for the third and final look in this video with the Colourpop So Jaded Catherine Lights and Colourpop palette. So I'm going to be going into more of the green tones today because I really was dying to do like more of a green tone look again because I did do one before already. So for the starting shade, I'm going to be using the shade Citrine, and this is actually the first time that I'm using this color. It's like a really beautiful matte yellowy tone shade, and you guys know I like fell in love with these kind of colors from like the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette, so I'm just going to be buffing this in my crease, and I'm going to be using that as my transition slash crease shade. So I'm just going to use that. It's this really pretty like mustardy yellow shade, and I just love it. It's so pretty. So I'm just going to keep on working that in the crease. And it was just really pigmented, and just these mattes just apply so easily. And I feel like they just don't really take that much work to build up in the crease. And I didn't really use a transition, I just went in straight with the color. And it looks really pretty. But like I said, I really started to love these kind of like yellowy tones from like the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette and the Colourpop Honey palette. Sorry, I was like burping a little bit. So that's it for that shade. And then for the, so I have like a connect the dots breakout on my left cheek. So for the defining shade, I'm going to take the shade Jade, and I'm going to buff that in my crease as my defining shade. And it's a really pretty like olivey green, and I'm just going to work that back and forth. And it's a really pretty matte color. I love these kind of shades. I don't really have any like matte greens like this in my collection. So this was just a really beautiful look. I ended up loving the end result of this one. This is definitely one of my favorites as well. And I love like the mustardy and olivey tones in this palette. And that's why I ended up loving this look so much. So I'm just going to buff it on the other side. And then we'll jump into the other shades because I'm not going to be sitting here for 10 million years showing you the same thing. Okay, so for the outer corners, I'm going to take the shade Stoned. And it's this really beautiful, like matte, cool tone brown. Sorry, my mouth was bothering me, so I was just like stretching it out a little bit. And I'm going to work that on my outer corners as my outer corner shade. And it worked really beautifully with this look as well because it's a really pretty like cool tone brown, and I thought it worked perfectly with the tones that I was using. So I'm just going to apply that to the outer corners. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. She also said that this color is actually Virgo in the Colourpop Zodiac palette. I haven't actually swatched both of them next to each other. I feel like this one is slightly more cooler toned than the Virgo color, but she said that she couldn't do a look without this shade, which I wish that she put like another like medium tone brown color in the palette rather than like this color, but like at the same time you need a good outer corner shade. So now I'm just going to apply my NYX glitter glue on my lid, and now I'm figuring out what color I want to use on my lid. It took me a little while because I wasn't sure if I was going to use 2 colors or 1. So then I decided to go in with the shade Tiger Eye and shades Tiger Eye and Emerald. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take the shade Tiger Eye, and I'm going to apply that on the inner part of my lid. And this is actually the first time that I ended up using this shade, and I ended up really loving it. It's like this really beautiful, like dirty olive kind of color, and it's so pretty. I was thinking about just using it all over my lid, but I was like, instead I'll just use it as a hint of color along with the green shade, because I didn't really want to use the green shade all over my lid because I thought that would just be too much. So I'm going to take that and apply it to the inner parts on both sides. I'm just building it up with my finger. until I get the desired color that I want. Okay, and I think that looked pretty good. And I think I'm still building up the color just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to take the lid shade, and I'm going to take the center shade. I already started applying shades to my lid, and I'm going to take the shade Emerald, like I said before, and I'm going to put that all over the center of my lid, and this color was just so stunning. Such a beautiful green shimmery shade. I knew I was going to love it. And then I'm going to do the same on the other eye, and I'm just going to build that up on the center of my lid. And I'm just going to try and really make sure that those two colors just mesh well together, being sandwiched in between Tiger Eye and Stoned, and just want to make sure that they both blend into each other seamlessly. So I'm just going to keep on building up the color, and I just want to make sure that that green is really, really vibrant. So I keep on going back and forth. It's just so pretty, I love it. I guess I'm still applying it. I just wanted to make sure you guys saw exactly what I was doing. I didn't want to like cut the video off. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew step by step what I was doing, and obviously you guys can see that I love it. I was like, wow, I really love how the look turned out. Okay, and then for my brow bone highlight, like I usually use, I'm going to use the shade My Precious, and I'm going to apply that to my brow bone. I'm just trying to find my brow bone brush, and I'm just going to take that and apply it to my brow bone. It's a really beautiful white matte highlight, and I love it. It's just so beautiful for every look that I've used. That I've done with this palette so far. It's just the perfect brow bone highlight. Okay, and then I'm gonna take, I think I'm just gonna, I don't know what just happened. I think something almost fell. I'm just going to take my crease shades and just make sure that there's no transfer. So I'm just gonna take the shade Jade again and buff that into my crease one more time, just to make sure that we didn't lose the color, and also to get rid of some transfer from the lid shades. So I'm just gonna work that in my crease. Why do I feel? I feel nauseous now, sorry. And then I'm going to take the shade Stoned as well and work that on the outer corners again to make sure it builds up to the color that I want. And I'm like literally obsessed with this look. And then I'm just going to build up the shade Tiger Eye again, and then Emerald too. Just again, you always want to build up the color more. Just if you struggle with the color like not really showing up the way you want it to, you always want to reapply it again once you finish applying the eyeshadows, just to make sure that you have built up the color that you want. And that is pretty much it for the eyes for now. Let's jump into the face. Okay, so now I'll show you guys what I used for my face makeup. I used my e.l.f. primer, then I also used my NYX Settings primer spray first, and then I used the e.l.f. primer. And then for my foundation, I think I almost dropped it. I used my Colourpop No Filter foundation in the color, it's like the lightest shade in the collection. And then I used my Colourpop, my Urban Decay Stay Naked concealer in the shade NW, I think it's Neutral, N1 Neutral, and then I used my Thrive Cosmetics powder to set my under eyes, and then I used my Charlotte Tilbury powder to set my face. Now I'm going to go back into the palette and use my inner corner shade, and I'm going to use the shade Peridot, and this is the first time I'm using it on my inner corners. I've only used the shade once on my lid, and you guys will see it Get Ready With Me on that anyway. I haven't posted it yet while I'm recording this video. So I'm going to use that shade and put it on my inner corners, and I was so excited to use this on the inner corners. I almost used it on the lids with the Emerald shade, but I had to make sure that I tested out the Tiger Eye shade too. So I was like, let me just apply it to my inner corners, and a lot of people have been doing that with like their tutorials of these of this palette. And again, this look was kind of inspired by Makeup by Treens as well, just because it was so pretty when she put the peridot shade on the inner corners. Or maybe that was Kathleen Lights. I think that was Kathleen Lights that put it on her inner corners in one of her videos, but she did like a warmer tone look. But I wanted to make sure I used like all the greens in this look, so I wanted to make sure that this was my inner corner highlight, and it looks so stunning. I love this shade. It's still my favorite shade in the palette, and I can't wait to use it again. Okay, so that's it for that. I just want to make sure it looks good, and then I'm going to jump into my lower lash line, and as you guys can tell, I am enjoying this look so much. So now I'm going to use the shade Geodude, and I'm going to buff that on my lower lash line. I was going to use that as my crease shade initially, but I wanted to use more of the shades that I hadn't used yet, so that's why I wanted to use Citrine, and I thought it just turned out so beautiful that I was like, you know what, I'll just add Geodude to the lower lash line so I can, at least I can still use it in this look. And it was just a really simple like very light green shade to put on the lower lash line, so it doesn't like, it's not like too colorful, and it's still like is the perfect color for this look. And I was like, yes, it looks so good. And I'd rather have this color on my lower lash line than Citrine. So that's why I was like, okay, this one looks really good. And now I'm just going to clean up the inner corners by just putting my, by blending my sponge underneath. And now I'm just going to take the shade Jade again and make sure that there's no transfer. And that's pretty much it for the eyes, and I'm just loving how they turned out. I think they look so good. I'm like, yes, I love it. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the face. I'm going to use my Private Party bronzer from Colourpop, and I'm just going to bronze up the skin with that. Again, just love this bronzer, and I pretty much used it for every look in this video, which is such a good bronzer. So I'm just going to use that to bronze up my skin. Like, how many times can I say it? And now we're going to go in with the blush. I'm just cleaning up the underneath with my sponge. So this is the first time I'm actually using the Sleeping Beauty palette on camera. So I'm going to take the neutral blush, like shimmery tone blush. I don't know if it's a blush or a highlight, but I've been using it as a blush because I feel like it would be a little bit dark for my skin tone. And I was like, damn, that's really pigmented. So that's why there's so much sparkle like flying around. I'm actually wearing this blush and highlight today as well as I'm recording this video, and it's just so beautiful. And I'm going to take that beautiful yellow tone highlight, and once I applied it, I was like, oh my god, this is so freaking pretty. It builds up so nicely, and it's a beautiful like yellow tone gold. I love it. It like reminds me of Aurora's hair, of her blonde hair, and I love it. It's so beautiful on the skin. I'm wearing it today too, and I just absolutely love this highlight. I loved it. It's just so stunning. And that's it for that. And then I just set my face and did my liner. I used the Maybelline Skinny Liner in brown, and mascara. I can't remember what mascara that I used. I'm sorry. It's not really that important. I think I used my Hourglass or my Lancome because I was hooked on those two. Or maybe my Colourpop. So then for the lips, I'm going to use the Lime Crime Angel Velveteen Lip Liner. And then for my lips, I'm going to use the Lime Crime Lip Glaze in the shade Rosemary, I believe. I hope it's Rosemary or Apple. I always forget which one that I use. But I absolutely love these, and I thought that this would be a perfect shade for this look. I absolutely love these lip glazes. They're so beautiful, and I love them for like cooler tone looks, and it just worked perfectly. And that's pretty much it for these three looks, you guys, and I absolutely love how all of them turned out. Alright, you guys, so this is look number 3 using the Colourpop So Jaded Kathleen Lights palette. So this is what the eyes look like. I'll show you close up. I'm literally so in love with this look. Like, It is just so pretty. I'm loving all of these greens. Oh, so pretty. I love it. And then here are the cheeks and the lips. Now, this is also the first time that I used the Sleeping Beauty blush palette. I'm not going to take it out again because I'm actually about to record a haul with all this stuff that I just used. I'm finally recording the haul video because that was the last thing I was waiting for, was that Besame palette. But I'm obsessed with this look. I love it. Guys, so that's pretty much it for the Colourpop 3 looks in 1 palette video. I know I was thinking that I was going to end up doing 4 looks in this video, but it was just going to be too many looks in the video, and the video would have been like an hour and 10 minutes, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to make people watch a video for an hour, so I got it down to about 45 minutes, so I hope you guys really enjoyed the looks that I did in this video. I ended up absolutely loving the palette. I can't wait to do a full review and swatches for you guys. I'm actually wearing a different palette today that I can't wait to share with you guys too. In a haul video, but I'm not going to tell you guys what it is yet, but I've been recording a few looks with it as well, and I'm also loving it too. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you guys picked up this palette or not and what your thoughts were on it, because I absolutely ended up loving all the looks that I did. So I love you guys. Please like and subscribe. Follow me on all my social media. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye!